About 5 years ago, I finished a novel I wrote in Cuba called Ocean. So the story for Red Cockroaches was some kind of prequel to that. It takes place in the same world, sort of like, I wouldn't say the future, but it's more like kind of an alternative reality. I came to New York about 3 years ago on a scholarship at the Lee Strasberg Theatre Institute to study acting. And since I was going to be here for a whole year, I decided I have to make a feature, my first feature. Although I had done about 12 short films back in Cuba, I felt it was the time to go into feature-length territory. So I started writing the screenplay while attending to school, and it took me about 4 months to write it. Then I met with my old friend Adam Plotch, with whom I shot a short film called The Plastic Fork during my first trip to the US. And his mom used to work for the 92nd Street Y, so we got a room for free there, and we organized an audition. We put an ad on Backstage, and we got about 150 or 200 actors for free, even though the ad said that there was no money. And basically the strategy was to shoot in the cheapest possible way without spending any money, even though the final budget came to be $2,000, but the original plan was that it would cost nothing. And I looked every possible way to get everything cheap, if not for free. We got a lot of locations through friends and relatives, and we bought a few props. We bought a couple of hardware store lights. I'm using that light right now for this interview. It was 25 bucks. It's not a professional light, but it does the job pretty well. And the whole shooting took about a year. We were shooting mostly on weekends, so it was kind of tough to keep everybody together for a whole year.
I'm sorry, it's disgusting. No offense to you. If anyone were to look.
Hey, go.
Wait, I'm all slimed up.
That was actually quite frustrating for some of the actors, because I will have to do sometimes 20 or 30 takes per shot. I wanted never to use the same shot twice, so every time that I will cut, it will be a new camera setup. Because I always thought that each shot means something, has a meaning. Like in literature, a sentence has a meaning. And once you write a period and you start another sentence, it's something else. So I wanted visually to express a different meaning according to what is happening. And sort of cutting back to the same shot, it creates some kind of TV kind of montage, like talking heads, so it can become boring. At least for me it's boring, and I will try to do every feature film in the future like that. I think it just adds some kind of dynamics. It also has a lot to do with my influences. I think since I like comic books a lot and I'm very influenced by anime, usually in cartoons they never cut back to the same shot, very rarely, but usually they draw, and that's what I did with the storyboards. They draw each moment the way it should be. It's a way of editing already the movie. I write in a way, for example, that once I finish a sentence and I write a dot, I know that there's a cut there. So if I write a comma, it means that there's a camera movement, but every sentence is basically a cut. That sort of translates into the storyboard and then into what I shoot. And also after I shoot, sometimes I discover on location that, oh look, there's a great shot there if I put the camera there, and there's this in the foreground, that in the background. So there are, I would say, 15 or 10% of shots that were not original in the storyboard that I shoot once I'm on location, after I cover all the storyboard shots. During the shooting I used a few color gels, blue, red, green, and sometimes orange. Overall the film took 2 years to make, one to shoot and one to edit. I knew that I couldn't do any special effects during production, so I will have to do all the visual effects in post. The editing of this film was quite important because it was through the editing that I disguised the low budget. All the elements that I couldn't have, or the elements I didn't want to have in the scene on certain shots, I had to either add or remove during the editing. I also had to add all the visual effects, the smoke, flying cars, clouds, colors, remove painting that I didn't like that was in the background and I couldn't manipulate. And so I was sort of doing art direction during the editing. I edited in this computer on Mac G4 Final Cut Pro, and sometimes I had 27 or 30 tracks of video, so it was crazy, endless rendering hours, because I had to create all this world out of scratch. I was doing the music in a PC with a software called Scale Tracker, which is not a very sophisticated software in the sense that it's not that new, but I like it a lot because it gives me a lot of freedom, and you can play with different instruments, and it's really fun. You have flutes, you have pianos, you have all kinds of instruments that you want, and it's not one of those prefabricated loops that people just drop in movies. I like to create my own melodies. What attracted me about this medium was that you can play with all those elements. You can use music, you have theater, you have photographs, you can control every single aspect, and you can send them in the direction to achieve the perfect atmosphere that you want to create. A lot of people ask me, for example, about the editing, how I did the transitions, and that, for example, is something that is not done in the editing. That's something that you have to plan from the screenplay. When you write the end of one scene and the beginning of the other, that's the time to create a transition. And I think a transition can act even as a scene in their own, because you have this scene and you have this other scene, and the way you put them together can mean something else. So if you create something around here that can have a third meaning, or make you believe something else, maybe this was a dream, maybe he's imagining this, maybe this happened before, so you sort of create a world that you don't know which ground you're stepping on, and creates that uneasy feeling that I always pursue, to that kind of dream quality that I'm fascinated by. For me, I try to make the movie that I would like to go see as a fan, and I love the movies that keep going even after they end in your head.